Coming up, a Sad Styles production.
Hello and welcome. My name is Mike Aaronworth, signing on to the sign-off of Frameworth podcast for yet another week. It's the podcast where we talk about all the stories you didn't know you wish you knew about the world of sports and sports marketing. We are joined for a very special part 2 episode. If you haven't listened to last week's episode with the introduction of Kerry Goulet, or Gouche as we've learned to call him, make sure to do that. Go back and watch or listen either on YouTube or on your favorite podcast platform, because we're going to get into part 2 here. And this is where we get into the weeds with regards to the playing career in Germany, plus all the post-career stuff. I will introduce our guest in a minute. I've kind of tipped my hand as to who that is. Before we do that, once again, we want to give a quick shout out to one of our loyal listeners who's given us a very lovely review over on iTunes. I've been called out. Chris King, I had on being interviewed, and I used the word lovely, and he called me out on that. Now I've been self-conscious about how often I use that word. So this one's going out to you, Meldog27, Apple Podcasts. Love the interviews and stories, with my favorite interview being with Laurie Halomas and Glenn Gretzky. The stories are real and not fluffed up by the media. It is the real story. Great questions asked by Mikey. Thank you very much. That were of great interest to the real answers of what you get here. Keep up the magnificent work with the podcast, as you already have the memorabilia figured out. Thank you. Well, thank you, Meldog. Give us an email, signoffpod@frameworth.com. We're going to send you, same as last week, a signed Morgan Riley 8x10 photo. You just got to reach out to us within 30 days of the drop of this episode, and we'll get that sent out to you. Without further ado, because I want to hear all the detail of all the stories that we have. I want to hear everything expanded on. If you listen to last week's episode, you know this man, my guest this week, definitely knows how to weave a fantastic tale, whether it has to do with hockey or not, or it's just the backstory of it. We're joined once again by Kerry Goulet, the man they call Gouche, the charismatic wonder. Thanks again for joining us for this part 2 episode.
I am absolutely honored that you would make a part 2 of this. And you mentioned Glenn Gretzky. He will be part of our story, actually.
Oh, fantastic.
And I hope Lovely comes into the picture, too. That'll make it all worthwhile.
Well, you're bringing all the lovely that they need.
Exactly. Hey, listen, I can't thank you enough for allowing me to share my story. And as I share my story, it's a journey. We all have journeys, and along the way, we collect the stories. But most importantly, it's what we collect along our journey that's not important. It's what we give back.
Right.
And, you'll hear about my good friend Robert Velfor, who broke his neck, who actually lived in a quad. I was 17 years old when he broke his neck, and it really gave me the opportunity to understand, as a hockey player, life can change in a minute. And I owe it a lot to him, because he educated me at a very young age that giving back is more important than what you collect, scoring titles and, all the fine things that come from playing pro hockey.
Sure. So I think, there's so much. And I think that as sort of an inspiration for how you got into your post-career work is integral. We left off last episode about you basically committing after a 2-year stay in Germany to switch teams and give it a shot, kind of as a permanent professional player. I would believe they courted you, they wined you and dined you. Why don't you take us on from there? Okay. Where we left off at the end of Timmendorf, I believe, was offering.
Fantastic. You even say it right, which is amazing. You sprechen Sie Deutsch. So listen, this is what's happened. I played Eschweiler, I fell in love with it. People loved me. I loved them. The fans there's nothing better than playing ice hockey in Germany.
Do they all call it ice hockey? It's always ice hockey.
I don't know if you know what the reasoning is. And they do it also, only North America calls it hockey.
Right.
And the reason is that it differentiates between field hockey and hockey. So I don't look good in a skirt, so I always want to make sure they know that I'm playing with Blades of Steel.
Ice hockey, Blades of Steel, one of my favorite games growing up as a kid.
So what happened was Timmendorf had asked me to come up, which I did. And on that weekend, they wined and dined me. And it was after the season, my second season. And they did it all, got back, sat down at a table, handed me a contract. The contract was already ready. And Jörg Dietrich was part of their management team and also the coach at the time. He was spoke perfect English, and he was going to be my translator. I'm looking, still haven't learned much German, because everybody wanted to speak English to me. So I thought, okay.
Was that to make you feel comfortable, or so they could practice?
And that they could learn.
Yeah.
And me thinking, listen, I'm only here for a couple of years. Who needs to learn the language?
Do you speak it now?
Sprechen Sie Deutsch.
Hey, there you go.
Ich bin ein Berliner. I'm fluent. I'm fun fluent.
Yeah.
Meaning that I can understand it all. I can't write it. I can read it. But I can parlay, especially in the bars.
Amazing.
So the contract's there. I didn't know I was getting a contract in front of me this quickly because now I'm going to have to let my other team know,
Sure.
which is going to be tough because you're leaving fans at the door and
course.
all that sort of stuff. So I was kind of shocked.
At least for a different division. You're not going to be playing against
I'm going
those.
up. No, thank God, because Timmendorf had advanced, Eschweiler had not.
Right.
So that was probably the best thing, because I wouldn't have wanted to gone home because I'm a very, very loyal person. So
And your teammate, the Yari Curry to your Wayne Gretzky, was he given the same offer?
No,
he
stayed.
stayed.
Yeah. So I'm reading through the contract and I see in my contract coach. I'm thinking, okay, what does that mean? So I turn to Yerky and Yerk, what is this? He said, listen, Kerry, we know a lot about you. You're very passionate. The word charismatic came into it. And then they said, you're a leader. We want you to lead our team. We want to go from this division and move up into the first division eventually. And we think you're the guy to do that. And I said, wow, that's putting a lot of heavy.
So player coach is your new role.
Did not know it. So I said,
Wow.
what does it mean? He says, well, I would be honored if you would be my co-coach.
Wow.
I said, well, how does that? You're going to be player coach. Reggie Dunlop, here I come. So I said, okay, like I've never coached before. I have no idea. He says, listen, don't worry. You'll be great at it.
Sure.
I'll be on the bench. You and I'll talk every day and all that sort of stuff. So I thought, wow, I had managed a bar, owned a bar, did all that sort of stuff. What better yet of being a player coach? I didn't want to be a coach,
Right.
but a player coach.
So how did you guys split the responsibility? Was during the game, was he
His
more,
call.
he was the coach,
Yeah.
but in between games, in terms of talking about what you're seeing on
In
the
between
ice,
periods.
in between periods as well. Okay.
100%. So he and I became best of buddies.
Yeah.
I would not have all this fun and accolades that people throw at me if I hadn't have done
Right.
what I did and believe in him, because I put a lot of trust in this
Of course.
guy. So great. I signed the contract and unfortunately some bad things started to happen and I didn't know about it until I got home. I was on a flight home in those days, I had suffered a concussion in my first week in Eschweiler. I didn't want to tell the story then because it's more relevant about what happened here.
Okay.
So I had suffered a very severe concussion and was put in the hospital. Basically, I woke up, they say, in the hospital. I was coming around. I was taking a shot. I was about 6 feet away from the net. As I opened up, the defenseman took my feet out and I slid into the boards again. Don't forget I was wearing a Gretzky helmet.
Right.
And I turned my shoulder, thank God, they say, and I hit my shoulder first and then my head. Not my head first, or it could have been really, really nasty. And I woke up.
Were those old, I mean, especially you involved now in concussion safety, those Jofa helmets weren't known for
No.
pretty thin?
No.
Yeah. Okay.
I still wear it in my fun games, but
Sure.
no, I don't recommend it if you're playing high-level hockey.
Okay.
And so what happened then is that Helmut Vianden, who I was living with at the time, they babysat me. They took care of me. My mother was actually flying in to Schiphol, which is Amsterdam airport, on the Wednesday, and I got hurt on the Sunday. I stayed in the hospital all the way up till Wednesday. And nobody would go pick her up at the airport. And they were all concerned about my shoulder. So when I woke up in the hospital, I had 5 German doctors standing over me. And I did mention that I only knew Hogan's Heroes German. And they were saying, Schulter. Oh, was mit Schulter? And obviously shoulder.
Yeah.
And shoulder seemed pretty close. Nobody talked about my melon.
No.
They were only concerned about that. So I decided to strip down, sneak out of the hospital. I was supposed to be there for a week. And jumped in my car, drove to Amsterdam, 2.5 hours, picked my mom up and bring her back to the apartment, and I never went back to the hospital because I had the choice. I could do that in those days. I knew there was something wrong. I never really thought. It was foggy. I didn't have sensitivity to light. I didn't have the atypical symptoms of a concussion.
The prototypical.
A little bit of a headache,
yeah.
prototypical, yeah. There comes that grade 12 stuff.
That's
So I was lost a little bit. I just thought it was all part of being a pro hockey player.
Right.
Always tired, a little bit confused. We're on the ice every day, all that sort of stuff.
Especially this is 1989, 90 around then.
1989, end of 89.
Around the time at this, no one was talking about
Nobody talking
concussions in this way.
So the summer of 1990, I went home, and after signing my contract with Timmendorf, and I started really experiencing stuff. And it started on the flight home. And what happened is because of the concussion over the months that I was dealing with it, I was paranoid. I had paranoia of everything around me. And so I had money that I should have, it wasn't like today where you emailed money.
Sure.
You had to go to the bank, do a wire transfer, all
yeah.
that sort of stuff. And so I wanted to hold on to my money. So I had 30,000 marks at the time. It would have probably been, I don't know, 25,000 Canadian in 31,000 Deutschmarks. 1,000 Deutschmark bills. They were the size of an 8x10 piece of paper. And I put them in a white envelope, put them in my pocket, and flew home with it. And as I was flying home, my girlfriend at the time was with me. I had said, listen, we're going to get home. We got to put a deposit on the apartment. You've got the money, right? She says, no, you kept it. So what do you mean? I gave you the envelope. No, Kerry, you've got it. And I started to panic. And I got up out of my seat, went into my thing, and I was ripping everything apart. The stewardess had saw because I was starting to sweat really bad. She walked over to me and she said, is there something wrong? I said, yes, I've lost my money. And she said, okay, calm down. Where have you been? I said, I went to the bathroom. So we walked back to the bathroom, and I had taken the envelope, these 30,000 Deutschmarks, and put it in the basin for some reason. Because I guess I was sitting down to go to the bathroom.
There's garbage in my pocket. And
Well, I wouldn't think garbage. I just think it was kind of crimping. So
Yeah.
And that's where I'd left it. So I sat back down. I apologized to my girlfriend at the time and said, listen, I'm really sorry. I don't know what hit me. But as soon as I got home, all of a sudden, hell broke loose. I started to meet my buddies, and I wouldn't be able to look you in the eye. I always talked down. I lost confidence or something. Now I'm a player coach and I can't communicate. So my father, one of my buddies, Dave Weeb, called my dad and said, hey, there's something wrong with Gouche. Can you maybe get him seen by a doctor? Because I was hanging with the boys, but I wasn't myself.
Yeah.
I wouldn't start the conversation. I was always waiting.
You were there physically, but not there mentally. Yeah.
And that was right at the beginning of the summer. And my dad took me to his doctor, and the doctor ended up saying, listen, I think you're suffering from some anxiety. I'm going to send you to a psychiatrist just to get you checked out. Nobody was talking about my concussion in my head.
Did they know what that you had?
I didn't really, no, I didn't talk about it.
Because you wouldn't have thought to connect the two at that point.
Didn't connect it, didn't talk about it. And so once I got to the psychiatrist, he basically said, listen, tell me about your history. Have you banged your head, blah, blah, blah. And it took me about 2 or 3 visits to realize, hey, you know what? I did. I was concussed, and things started to open up a little bit. I was struggling. I was in trouble. So he said, listen, I'm a psychiatrist. What you're dealing with is probably a case of heavy anxiety or maybe even some depression. I'm 30, for God's sakes. How can I be depressed? I'm playing hockey in Germany. I got money coming out of the Yin Yangs at that time.
Sure.
Cars and Autobahns.
Or in this case, money coming out of your pocket and landing in the basin. Yeah.
Thank you. And so how could I be depressed?
Right.
So he said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put you in it's not a psychiatric ward, but I'm going to put you on our psych ward just to, do a 3 or 4 day assessment of you and see what's going on. So I did. And I remember sitting in the ward. It was at the Grace Hospital, sitting there with my dad and all these crazy people walking in and out.
Wow.
And I turned to him and I said, wow, what are we doing here? And so they put me in for a couple of days, and they did all the assessments and that. And after it was done, Dr. Armstrong was his name. He said, listen, Kerry, you're suffering from a severe depression. Because you're a type A person, you're going to go through it really quickly. I want you to go back and play hockey. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to send you to a psychotherapist, and they'll take care of you. They'll walk you through it. You're going to go through this very wild and crazy ride. But I think the best thing for us is get you back to Germany. And it was a summer of hell. Oh my God. I just went through everything. They gave me a pill called Despermine, and it was an antidepressant, but it was antipsychotic. Like it knocked me out.
Oh yeah.
I could continue on working out. And I had a good friend named Donnie Depot who I went to, and he was a coach, and he had gone through some mental health issues. So I went to him and said, Donnie, here's my story. And he said, wow, it's going to be heavy to get you over. So he gave me a huge binder of drills, and he walked me through it. This is how you start the season. And he basically Coles Notes me through being a player coach. My dad babysat me throughout the whole time. It came to August. I had to fly over. There's a longer story, which I won't give it to you today because it would take us forever. It will be in my memoirs that are coming out.
Memoirs being
and
worked on.
It is unbelievable when you hear the story about my psychotherapy and how I got better to get over to Germany.
Sure.
So now we're getting ready to go. My mom was working with my uncle. He was a politician in Winnipeg. She was running his campaign, so she couldn't fly over with me. So my dad basically flew over with me, held my hand, got me to Germany. I had the book as a player coach, and I met Yerke. Only Yerke, the manager, and their doctor knew that I was suffering some issues.
Wow.
And we faked it. When I was on the ice, you wouldn't know I had a problem. Came off the ice, I couldn't wipe my bum. Thank God.
Wow.
My
Just
dad for a month.
kicking
Unbelievable.
in.
My dad took care of me like no others. And then I met a girl. I'd broken up with my girlfriend, and I met a girl named Alexa Kapachi. Her and Willie Roker, along with Jörg Dietrich, got me through it. I was a month on these pills that really were probably doing more damage for me than good. They babysat me along with my dad. We threw the drugs away. My mom flew over at the time, and they basically took care of me. And it took about 2 months. I don't really remember all the times of that first month in Timmendorf as well as I do all the other times in my career. And that set the stage for the rest of my life. I got through it. They got me through it, and then my career just started to blossom.
Well, but question, because I've never dealt with concussion symptoms. I know this. I know the story. I know what it does. You know, objectively, not subjectively, because I've never experienced it. But what finally got you over the hump? Is it just time and recovery? Because you're playing at that time, which. Is there a part of you that's thinking like, well, thank God I didn't take a big hit?
Well, now I do. I didn't think of it.
Right.
I just thought it was part of being a player, right?
And so all of this relating the depression and the anxiety and the inability to look people in the eyes and the confidence, relating that to concussions is something that only came afterwards.
Later,
That's
far
only
later.
something that you're looking back. Oh my God, I'm realizing now how much of a play this actually had.
It was actually meeting Ron Ellis that actually did it.
How many years later?
2010.
Wow.
Yeah.
So we're talking
As I was
20
writing a book.
years later.
Yeah, because we wrote a book called Concussed, and
Yes.
he was part of it. So that's how
With Keith Primo.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's how this all came to light. So back then we knew nothing. Like we were just, you got your bell rung and you're seeing stars. And I saw them all the time.
Right.
Nothing different. This one just happened to set me back a little bit further than most. Never got into drugs other than the Despermine that they gave me. Never drank from my bar days.
Yep.
It really set me up for it. And Alexa Kapachi really babysat. We became very, very intimate, very close through this time frame. I was very blessed to have met her and Willie Roker. He was my personal doctor. We lost him a couple of years ago. He was the best. I would not be on this planet without Willie Roker. He was, I love him and I miss him dearly. From that moment, if I broke a fingernail, the only guy that would touch me was him.
Oh, really?
I would even fly from, at that time, Winnipeg, or once moving to Toronto, I would go to a doctor, they'd say something's wrong, I'd fly to Germany.
Back to him.
So I was blessed to have him in my life.
It looks like he set you up, and we can kind of, not that it's a career worth glossing over, because your achievements are quite frankly ridiculous. What you did in Germany is almost unmatched. A storied career, player coach, in spite of the fact that you're dealing with concussions. You amassed a total of 1,997 points in the 505 games you played. But that's not what your career ended up with.
No,
Can you tell that story? And this is not to push aside the concussion issue. We will get to that as a base, but tell the story about how you managed to reach that 2,000 point plateau.
So playing in Timmendorf, we just absolutely tore it up. I played with Mark. Later on, I got Mark to come up and play with me, one of the best players I've ever played with. And we just, with a guy named Marvin Glaser, and we crushed the league for a couple of years. We won our first German championship. And at that time, I was skating around the rink. I was mentioned, we would sign autographs. We didn't have, it'll come to the questions.
Yep. No.
You understand that I'm framing it up. We would, in Timmendorf, they didn't have glass. It was netting.
Oh, okay.
So after a game, they'd lift the nets and all the people would hang over the boards and you would sit and you'd skate around and you would sign autographs. So on one of these particular occasions, I was doing it and I came to the corner and there was a lovely lady there with a young boy who was bald and looked very white, palish. I didn't notice it at the time. And I she said, please sign this picture. So I signed the picture and I saw the young boy and just kept going. And, maybe 2-3 weeks later, same kind of scenario. I'm skating around that same corner. I kind of glossed over the corner and a tug of my jersey. And I turned, it was a lady. I said, oh, thank you. I said, oh, where's your son? And she said, I just want to let you know that my son passed with leukemia and you made his day that day.
Oh, wow.
And obviously at that moment, I wasn't emotional. I just sucked it up like a tough hockey player. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. And skated around, got in the dressing room, sat there, had a beer in my hand with the boys, and just broke down, started crying. That was the first time cancer had actually come into my life, knowing the word and what it meant. And so I did some research. And as we went through my life, I had a buddy that broke his neck when I was 17. I mentioned Robert Velfor, and he was part of the Ronald McDonald's kids. He went to the Ronald McDonald's house. So I got to know Ronald McDonald's back at a very young age. And while I was in Timmendorf, just down the street was a city called Lubeck.
Right.
They had 4 McDonald's. So I thought I wanted to connect the dots. So after that moment, on Monday, I phoned the first McDonald's and said, hey, listen, I want to know, do you guys do Ronald McDonald's houses here? And he said, well, it's really ironic you're calling me. Hans Hanna is in the States. He's flying back, and he wants to build a Ronald McDonald's up in Lubeck.
Oh, wow.
Wow. Again, incredible.
My dad, if he were here, he loves to use this word, and it's fortuitous.
Yeah.
It's being in the right place at the right time, the number of those situations. Yeah. I kind of have a theory that these kinds of coincidences happen to everyone.
They do.
But it's are you willing and able to take control of them?
Unbelievable that you say that, because there are so many coincidences that happen. Go left or right.
Right.
If you would have went left, it could have been a whole other,
for sure,
good or bad.
Yeah.
And so Hans came back 2 weeks later. He called me up right away. Hey, listen, this is blah, blah, blah. I met this kid and cancer. And he said, Gouche, this is unbelievable. I'm starting to entertain how to raise some money for building my Ronald McDonald's here up in Lubeck, and that we formed a partnership. It was called Kerrys Kids, named after me, and we raised money with celebrity games, very similar to what Road Hockey to Conquer Cancer. I was doing that way before it was even a thing in Germany, and we had guys like Ralph Schumacher, not Ralph, not Michael, Eric Kuhnackel. One of the greatest players of all times, was to be the real Wayne Gretzky of ice hockey. He was to play with Phil Esposito in the New York Rangers, got homesick, went home. So that never happened. But I had all these celebrities, and rock stars want to be athletes. Athletes want to be rock stars.
Right.
In business,
right.
People with money want to be both.
Sure. Yes.
So I connected the dots.
Yes.
And I got them all coming together. And we got involved with a lady named Frau Carstensen, Mrs. Carstensen, and she ran the Cancer Society for Kids in Lubeck. And it was going to be a part of the whole Ronald McDonald's house. That's how my philanthropy really
got
took
started.
off,
Yeah.
Right? And so now, through me suffering concussions, cancer, kids living on the street, my Kerrys Kids did all of that.
Yeah.
And it went on for years, and all my players had helped me, and it had, throughout the years, I became better known as a philanthropist than a hockey player. I was good. I wasn't great, but I was good, maybe above good. And that really opened the doors for me to do a lot more. I played played twice a week, practiced an hour a day.
Yeah.
Like, seriously.
Now, so at this point, when you're starting Kerrys Kids, how long had you been playing at this? Like, were you towards the end of
No. This
is early on.
3 years into it.
Okay. So take us through to that point then where, because I actually did have a question later on, which is, your career ends and you start to think philanthropy, but it looks like those seeds were sowed from the very beginning.
They were sowed when my buddy had broken his neck.
Right.
That's when I
Robert,
realized. We did a couple golf tournaments for him and had Keith Kachuk come out, a bunch of Winnipeg Jets.
Yeah.
So that's how I got to start to do the entertainment and event business.
So that kind of grows throughout your time in Germany. Would What about the question of coming back to score the additional 3 points to reach?
So that I'm leading up to that. So this was honing my skills to become a poor philanthropist. You know, obviously I'm not Bill Gates. Sure. So I continued on playing, having success. Ronald McDonald's house, they built it. They got my jerseys in it. One of my biggest accomplishments for me is to have my jersey hung up. Hans Hannes still today is one of my best buddies. We talk, you know, on a monthly basis. It was an incredible relationship. We lost Farrell Carson, unfortunately, to cancer of all things. But she was an amazing person. And as this went, it followed me. So I started doing major events. And I played up until 40.
Yep.
And it was an unbelievable career. Owe it to the fans mostly because they kept me propped up. Willie Roker, who I mentioned, and Alex Capacci, of course, my parents. But more importantly, was my teammates.
Right.
I had such great teammates. So at the end of it all, I won a German championship in the 3rd division with Greyfrath. I won 2 championships with Timmendorf. I won a bunch of scoring titles. Mark McKay broke records all over the place. And so
Mark McKay's also from Winnipeg, the person who came out to play with you. Yeah.
And so he and I just continued on playing together for years. And then it ended up at 40, being a player coach. A lot of demands on your life. Hurt players because I had to cut them. Sponsors saying, why don't you play this guy? A lot of pressure.
Yeah.
And at 40, I was having one of my better years. And I thought, halfway through the season, Timmendorf was struggling. I'd come back and forth from Timmendorf. I played at Greyfrath in Hamburg, in Berlin, Deggendorf. I got all around. And Greyfrath was one of my favorite places, as was Timmendorf, Eschweiler. And then at the end of the career playing in Timmendorf, I was tired. Mm-hmm. I was leading the league and I was leading the team in scoring up in the top 3 at 40, but I had unbelievable players. Todd Johnson and Krylik, I can't remember his first name. He was Jason Krylik. Yeah. Phenomenal hockey players. So I was right up there in leading in the score. And I just, one day we had lost the game and I knew it was time. And I basically said to the management, they were putting a lot of pressure on me not to, to quit and just become a coach. What do you mean? I'm still playing good.
Yeah.
I was playing as a non-import, so I had got my German passport.
Did you? Oh, okay. So at that point,
I became an EU player.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was allowed to play as a non-import.
Were you, just a quick question about the player-coach thing, were you ever in charge of how many minutes you got? Or
no.
Okay.
Oh, well, yeah.
A little bit?
and the reason why I became a player coach is I couldn't fire myself, right? So Jurk and I had this great relationship. So when I left Timmendorf, I went down to Greyfrath and was the player coach. And then a guy named Ulan Mühlenhauser became the coach. I kind of stepped back because it was really high demanding. Like it's a tough job.
I would imagine.
And I'm lucky that I got to do it. I wouldn't recommend it on everybody. And that's why I didn't end up being a coach because, people said, why didn't you go back? Or what? The pressure of being a coach, I tip my hat off to them because you're just hired to be fired. One day, your shelf life can be long, not many. It's just like a pro player. You could be here today, gone tomorrow with an injury. And same thing with coaching. You lose a job and you never come back. So there was no stability in it. And so at 40, I'd said, okay, that's it. I'm going to play my last 6 months, 4 months. I'm just going to play. So I'm going to I'm going to resign as player coach. Uh-huh. And I think it would only be best if I resign as a player too of this club and go elsewhere. And because I was a German, I got so many offers. Like, it was crazy how many offers I got. And I got an offer through a guy named Marco Sticknote to a place called Hanover. And it was the Hanover Indians in the 3rd division. They wanted to move up. And it was 5,000 people rink. Every game, 7,000. Ridiculous.
Wow.
3rd division hockey, and 7,000 would be like 100,000 at a football field stadium.
Because of how loud they are.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
And it only had 3 walls.
Right.
So it was even open.
Right.
And because I was 40 and had this illustrious career, and I had Kerrys Kids, and I was doing a Kerrys Kids event, I said, listen, if you'll allow me to do the Kerrys Kids event in your rink and help me sell it out, I'll come to your club. And I chose a bunch of other clubs over it, and it was the best move I have made.
Wow.
Because I went to this, and they just absolutely adored it.
Or you chose it over the other clubs.
I chose it over the other clubs. Sorry, Hanover, and played for the Indians. And I played with a bunch of young guys, and we tore it up. And I led the league up until the last couple of weeks at 40-ish. turning 41. And unfortunately, as life has politics, the head coach, Dieter Rice, I think management had forced him to say, guys, we don't want to move up. So we're going to have to throw some games.
Wow.
Not illegally, just
Sure.
don't play some certain
Sure.
players, because to move up was millions of dollars.
Right.
And they weren't ready for it. But nobody had conveyed that to me.
Right.
I went to play. I played.
Yes.
I learned what tough was playing now as an import. Everybody ran at you.
Uh-huh.
I had blue with black colors, bloods, teeth knocked out, eyes cut, like ridiculous the amount of injuries I went through.
You were a target while you were playing?
Target.
there?
Well,
Yeah.
every import.
Yeah.
Every import was.
Yeah.
And if you scored, you were even more a target. So my numbers were silly. And so the third game left in the season, my Kerrys Kids event was only a month away. Dieter, we were on the bench. We were playing a team that we should be beating. He wasn't playing our line, first line, a lot. And he had decided to sit a couple players, which was really questionable for me. And I didn't understand it. And there was a face-off. We were up 2-1 in the game and playing terrible. And Germans don't boo.
Right.
They whistle. So we're talking whistle fest going on.
Oh, wow.
Because we had just beat this team a week earlier, 10-0. And here we are in the first period, 2-1 against a team that we should not be even close with in our own barn. And face off with a couple minutes to go, not even, maybe a minute to go in the first period. And I'm already over the boards because my centerman, I was playing right wing with a left-handed shot. He's the best face-off guy we got.
Sure.
So I'm thinking,
it's us.
as I got my leg going over, he says, sit down, Gouche. Sit down, Goulet. Sends over our fourth line. And I was really perplexed. Not only were sitting our best two defensemen and one of our forwards for no reason that anybody told me. He sends out the fourth line. They lose the draw. They score to make it 2-2. Now the place is just absolutely going ballistic. I turn to him, and all the press sat behind us. So I am only a player.
Yeah.
Shut your mouth, Goulet.
Right.
And I turned to him and I said to him, Ziggy, are you effing serious? What the hell are you doing?
Right.
Everybody saw it.
The press.
He comes over to me and says, you got a problem with it? I said, Ziggy, I don't understand. Like, why are we not out there? You're not bigger than this team, Goulet. And if you are, there's the door. I had just got separated with my wife, who was a German at the time. And I was here.
Yeah.
My Kerrys Kids was exploding. We'd already sold the place out. And I'm 40 and I don't understand this way of thought.
Right.
And I just turned to him and I said, I think you can do this without me. And I got up and I went in the room.
Wow.
Sat in the room, which was wrong. It was completely wrong from my standpoint. I should have never disrespected the coach. I should have sucked it up, got through it, and then dealt with it. So we got off into the dressing room. Guys were coming in and they were looking at me, and one guy said, "Hey, Gouche, right call, bud. Well done." Other guys are saying, well, "Why? You're my mentor. Why would you do that?" In subtle language, body language and everything. Ziggy comes walking in with the other general manager. Goulet in my office. So I follow him along, sit in the office, and he said, "Don't you disrespect me like that." I said, "Ziggy, I don't get it. I don't know what you're doing here, but I'm here to win. You brought me here to win. And I got to question you on this thought." And he said, "Goulet, you don't know what's behind the door here."
Because he's dealing with management telling him not to win.
And I said, "Okay, listen, I know you're under a lot of pressure, but Ziggy, you can't, then I'm your buddy. I'm not here for your job. I don't want your job.
Right.
Don't think that I'm playing here so that I can have your job next year.
Right.
I do not want your job. Let me underline that. I want to go home. I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm finished." And he said, "Well, I'll tell you what, Gouche, you embarrassed me. So I'm going to have to suspend you. So suspend me all you want, but here's how it's going to happen. You're going to come back out. You're going to play as if nothing's happened. We're going to host a press conference. You're going to apologize. And while you apologize, we will then figure out how to give you a 1-game suspension so you can play the last 2 and then do your Kerrys Kids." I agreed to it. So I duked up, suited back up, went out and frickin' tore it up. Like not only me, but my line.
Yeah.
And we crushed this poor little team. It was bad. I think I had 4 or 5 assists. I don't think I scored, but 4 or 5 assists, and they're carrying. It was ridiculous.
So this is the same. This is not after the game. This is intermission, and then you go out and play the same
Yeah.
game. And
2 periods.
That's amazing.
2 periods.
Yeah.
So we get a press conference afterwards. I'm getting undressed. Ziggy's already up there. Management's already up there. So it's a big, huge table like this. There's more than enough press.
Sure.
Because all the fans could watch the press conference from a little bit.
Right.
There'd be a table and us and then all the fans. So it was jammed to the rafters because everybody's going to want to know what the heck this is all
Right.
about. By the time I got from the room to the press conference, they had already suspended me in front of everybody. So I walked up, didn't know anything about it, sat down and said, listen, I want to apologize for my actions. I should have never overstepped my boundaries. I'm only a player. Ziggy is the coach, and I'm truly sorry for that. And one of the press guys said, well, a little too late, isn't it? You've been suspended for the season. I said, what? You've been suspended for the season? I said, there's only 3 games left. Sorry, you're suspended. I turned to Ziggy sitting there. I said, "What is this a joke?" He said, "No, management suspended you." I thought, this is nuts. So I'm in tears. I storm out of the room saying, "I'm sorry. I'm going to have to contemplate whether or not I do my Kerrys Kids game at the end of the month here."
Wow.
And walked out. So then I went back into the room. A couple of days went by. Management called me in and basically said, "We're taking so much heat. You have to do your Kerrys Kids. There's no," because it's for Ronald McDonald's
Right.
house.
And at
all
a
that
certain
stuff.
point is the benefit of the charity.
I
and-
got the biggest rock band called Flurry and the Slaughterhouse. They're like our Guess Who here.
Okay.
Only big in Germany.
But huge
Not the
for
Scorpions.
them. Yeah.
Very similar
Yeah.
to Scorpions,
Yeah.
but bigger in Germany than the Scorpions.
Okay.
They didn't make a huge
Wow.
international career. So they're all a part of this. It's a big event. So, but we're going to have to keep you suspended. So after the management left, Ziggy came and said, Gouche was out of my hands. There's nothing I could do. They just know without you, we're not going to advance.
Wow.
I said, well, what are you talking about? He said, they can't afford to advance. If we advance, they're not going to have the funds to go forward.
Right.
So Marco Sticknote and I may get in a little bit of trouble with this. Honest truth, Marco Sticknote and I talked about it, and he walked me through it and got me through it. He helped me do the Kerrys Kids. We raised $100,000 or something. It was a ridiculous amount of monies, and that was my playing career. I was done.
And that explains why you left it 3 points shy of the 2000 and why it was 505 games and not 508.
Yeah, and I didn't get a chance to say goodbye to a lot of the fans. I didn't get what I really wanted to do with ending my career. And I still had lots to do with Kerrys Kids, and I want to do a lot more. And unfortunately, that was 2001. And that summer after Kerrys Kids event, I had a 3-year deal signed to go and play with my buddy Marco Sticknote for the Hanover Scorpions.
Yeah.
And so the design was to go back and finish it.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Okay.
So what happened was my father got stricken with prostate cancer in April.
Okay.
We did an event, and it's the first time I met Gretzky. Gretzky had just announced he was going to be the general manager of Hockey Canada, if you recall that,
Yes.
back in 2001. And they had an event there. The World Hockey Championships were happening in Hanover at the time.
Right.
So I got to connect all the dots and do
Yet again,
an
yeah.
event there. And I brought Team Canada 72 players over. It was a big, huge event. And the event was April 30th, which was my birthday, and my father was supposed to arrive on his birthday, which was April 20th.
Okay.
And they were going to be and see this incredible event in front of the Ice Hockey, International Ice Hockey Federation. We were hosting this Kerrys Kids event before the World Hockey Championships.
Right.
We had the Hockey Hall of Fame was there with a Phil Pritchard with a full display of Gretzky's stuff, and the NHL. He didn't have the Stanley Cup, but he had other cups. And Gretzky was flying over. The tournament was starting 1st of May. Gretzky was flying over on the 1st of May to get started with the club and the team. And we held our event. But I was told on April 20th my father would not make it. He had a little bit of an issue at the hospital, so he's sick. My parents never told me how bad it was. And on April 30th, we ran the event, and that night my mom said, "You got to come home." And so I flew home. I met Wayne Gretzky at the airport. He was my, like,
Yeah.
never got to meet him, and I just got to wave at him and he said hello, and I left to go back, and that's when it all hit me. That summer, I continued on training. My father had been stricken with prostate cancer for the second time, and unfortunately it metastasized in his back, and they had to take the bowel and the bladder out. And so it left him, with 2 bags, ileal conduit and conduit bag to pee and poo. And so I knew it was only a matter of time. It went through the whole summer. I lived with my dad. I was there at the hospitals. And unfortunately, on September the 7th, he went into a coma. And the team, because it was owned by my buddy Marco, said, listen, Gouche, normally you're supposed to go back August 15th. You can come back September 15th. We'll give you a month. You can train. I'm not an import. I'm playing as a non-import. So we can do without you for the first couple of exhibition games. So I agreed to that. And I'd bought a ticket for myself and my mother because we knew my father was going to make it. And he slipped into a coma on just before the 1st of September, passed away September 7th, and his funeral was September 12th, and our tickets were for September the 13th.
Oh, wow.
And of course, we all know what happened on September the 11th, 2001.
Yeah.
So I was instantly retired. It was done. It was over.
That is fascinating, the ways in which, and here's something people like you never shine a light on. You talk about the coincidences and the fortune that has been a part of your life and ignore the cosmic issues that prevent you from doing some things as well. And granted, you don't want to focus on those things because you'll get yourself into a deep state of the world is against me if you do that. But you've had your fair share of both. And this story of not only the suspension for 3 games, but then your father and 9/11 and your career being kind of taken out of your hands. How much of this do you look back on and think, well, thank God I sowed the seeds for things like the charitable, like Kerry's Kids and this and that, because you had something immediately to be a part of.
Well, yeah, actually, it was scary when I had to make that decision, obviously, but it was also a good thing. As you mentioned, there's good and bad in everything. That decision, had I not done that, I probably would not be sitting here. I probably, if my father didn't get sick and I couldn't go back, I probably would have played my 3 years out, been 44, become a hockey coach. I was married, had kids. I would have lived my life in Germany and I would probably never be here. So there's a good to it.
Yeah.
And the good is that the fact that I met so many people along the way that were so supportive that I was able to continue on being part of Germany, even though I couldn't go back. And it was at his funeral on September the 12th where everybody was so concerned about, the people that had perished in the 9/11. But here's my mother who's sitting there crying of losing her loved for 39 years.
Right.
There's no comparison, right?
No, of course.
And so I knew I could not leave her. Even if I could get on a flight, she was frail. I could not leave her at that time. So I was instantly retired, which was a good thing because nobody had to say to me, Gouche, you're not good enough anymore.
That's fair.
So it gave me an opportunity to do that. And that's where I met Barry Monroe. I went to, on the day of my father's funeral, I went to a golf tournament. It was Brad May's golf tournament that afternoon. And my brother was in town. Don't forget, none of his relatives made it because they were all flying in he'd passed away on the 7th. And on the 11th, a lot of people were flying in that night to come to the funeral on the 12th. And there was a no-fly zone. So a lot of the relatives didn't get in from Winnipeg. A lot of his brothers, a lot of my mother's relatives. So it was really our immediate family, my sister, my brother, and my mother, and a couple of others that had moved to Toronto. So it was devastating. And yet that afternoon on his funeral, on his passing, there was a golf tournament at Glen Abbey. Angus Glen. Angus Glen. And my brother and mother said, you got to go. And I went, obviously with a very, very broken heart. And that's where I met Barry Monroe.
Was this golf tournament for Shoot for a Cure?
It must have been because it was Brad May who was running it or part of it. And again, my buddy had broken his neck and I'd lived the life of being around a quad. And here's Barry in a chair running this incredible Canadian American Spinal Research Organization. And he basically on that golf tournament said, here's my card. I'd love you to join us in the summers when you come back from, because it was on the 7th.
Right.
Nothing had been decided. So he gave me his card. I enjoyed the day, went home, obviously grieved with my mom and that. And on the 12th, the plan was for us to leave on the 13th. The team had accommodated me. They'd give me an extra apartment. My parents were there every year, so it wasn't. She could grieve with friends over there and stuff. And she was a big part of my life. And 11th hit, and 12th hit harder. 13th, 14th went by. My brother went home, and I was going through my pockets and out pulled Barry Monroe's card.
Wow!
And I called him and I said, "Hey, Bear." I think I'll be staying. Can I volunteer my time? So I volunteered my time to shoot for a cure, Barry Monroe, for the first year, and ended up becoming hockey operations for him, and was the face, and went with Kirk Gangenbuck and the boys, and went to games, and we were doing jersey numbers. You guys were sewing them on the back of jerseys, and we were selling it and keeping the charity alive. And from there, I just learned how to be a part of it. And of course, I'd met Ron Ellis, got involved with the Hockey Hall of Fame, and it's just unbelievable that it happened, or I would not have been here today doing what I do.
And it goes, it seems like that sort of influenced, or at least kind of inspired a lot of what you ended up getting into later on. How much of your time with Shoot for a Cure, or I guess how long were you there before you started some of your other ventures like Stop Concussions?
Well, it was 4 years. It happened. Keith Primo and Joe McGinnell were our spokespeople for the Shoot for a Cure campaign.
Oh, so, okay, Keith, who you eventually ended up founding Stop Concussions with.
And then when Keith went through his career ending, mine wasn't career ending. I got through it with trials and tribulations.
Right.
Keith was ended.
Yeah.
He was done. And so I had already met him and known him as the ambassador. So I got involved with him a lot more and helped him through some of his difficult times. It took a long time for him to do it. And so a year after he was getting better, that's when I went to Barry and we kind of made a decision. This is called neurotrauma. We're damaging our brains at an alarming rate. This was in 2004, 2006. 2008 is when we started to talk more about it. Keith was struggling through it. And then in 2009, I said, guys, let's expand the spinal cord injury component to neurotrauma. And Barry and I agreed to it. So I said, okay, we'll start a thing called Stop Concussions. You're running the Canadian American Spinal. Shoot for your Cure can be a neurotrauma foundation. That's how we kind of changed and pivoted a little bit. And we still today, Barry and I work tirelessly together. He was actually over in the event we'll talk about with Gretzky.
Yeah.
He flew over with Gretzky.
I was going to say, I mean, you've mentioned, I think 2 or 3 times at this point, explicitly connecting the dots. And it seems like that's something you've continued to almost build a roster of support organizations and communities that you can just kind of put in touch with one another to make the sport of hockey a better place, and the community around hockey. I mean, Kerry's Kids being an example. Is Kerry's Kids, is that still operational?
It's not. When you run stuff like that, it was really about me, unfortunately. And I had great people, Andy Marley and obviously the Hans Hanna, but it needs the motor.
Sure.
And once I left and realized I couldn't commit to the time and I needed to get a new life, like seriously, one day I was sitting around and my sister at the time said, hey, you're going to have to put together a resume. I got a headhunter you can go to. And so I put my resume together and went to her headhunter, and she looked at the thing and she looked up and looked at me and said, wow. Good luck, basically was what she said. And she said, what you've done is amazing, but this is not a resume I can use to go get you a job.
Sure.
So you're getting, you
got to start your own thing.
So I had to, and I've already been doing that, right?
Yes.
Throughout my life. So I said, okay. And that's where Barry came in. And that's how I got to go to him. And man, it's been, I'm a dot collector. But I never forget the dots. And a networker. Some people think I'm a schmoozer and a wheeler dealer, and I'm not. I just learned at a very young age that the gift of gab can also help those that don't have the gift.
I think you're. I don't think you're giving it enough credit when you just call it the gift of gab. I think I've brought this up as an example on this podcast before. Follow me on this just for a little bit. There's a movie, say what you will about it. It's the Michael Fassbender movie about Steve Jobs. And there's a moment in that movie that I think about all the time for people like you, where he talks about how he went to go see a symphony. And he spoke to the conductor after the symphony. And he said, I'm watching this and I see the trombone player playing the trombone perfectly. I see a percussionist who spent their lives dedicating their craft to that instrument. Same thing with the piano and so on and so on. And then I see you. What do you play? And the conductor said, I play the orchestra.
That's right.
I'm the person who, in your mind, connects the dots, brings everything together. And sure, some people may see that and think, oh, just schmoozing and this and that, but the glue needs to exist. You have to let the people who know their craft focus on their craft, and someone needs to be the person to bring it together and make it sound good. And that's what you do with all of your organizations. I think it's way more commendable than just saying you got the gift of the gab.
Wow, I'll tell you what, you're good. You're really good. Thank you for that. And I want to watch that because I think the player coach getting engaged and embracing all these fans, getting involved with rock stars and the charities and all that stuff. Just again, I use the term, I'm worldly educated.
Mm-hmm.
I watched the Berlin Wall fall. I was there when it happened. So when I make a jest over the fact that, I got to grade 12 by passing grade 6 twice, it's true. I wasn't the greatest at school.
Sure.
So, but I became able to understand the cultural aspect of living things that a lot of people don't get to.
Of course.
And so you're right. You know what? Thank you for that. Cause that's really what I'm an orchestrator. I get the wand and, a Pied Piper and people come and, hey, let's do this. And some of them work, some of them don't. Sure. But I think what's really important in that as we go through this, I'll tell you how I got into doing the take the jersey off my back. It's about that orchestration that you mentioned. The concept I always learned that hockey gave me family. Mm-hmm. Not only when I lost my family, I lost my father, I lost my mother, as you may or may not know, I know you know, I lost my sister to mental health issues. 36 hours later, my wife and I lost her mother. Mm-hmm. So we know tragedy. And all of us go through it. We could all, I've had lots of really, really, really phenomenal days and a few bad days. And those really, really high days gave me the opportunity to get balance because I knew there were going to be some bad days. So it allowed me to have that equilibrium so that I didn't take the highs too high and the lows too low. You've heard that expression. Yep. It's so vitally true. And when I lost people that I loved dearly, I knew other people lost people dearly. So I wasn't alone. And that's what family's about. I had so many people reach out when I lost my sister that it propped me up, gave me the opportunity to continue, and knew that I needed to do more for mental health because I didn't do enough to keep her on the planet. I did absolutely everything humanly possible to keep my sister on this planet, but it wasn't enough. So I needed to find a way. And what this jersey auction that I'm doing this coming up really represents that family. Hockey's given me everything. Like I can't even, it's in my blood. Yeah. I live and sleep and I would die for it, which I almost did through the concussion situation. And what does family give you? It gives you hope. Mm-hmm. And if you have hope, you can do anything. You could live the impossible. So what does it do? It allows a guy that's 52 years old, has a little bit of a beer belly, gets a call from a guy named Andy Marley to go and play an ice hockey game back in 4th Division in Timmendorfer-Strand, where my jersey hangs with my good friend Mark McKay and Marvin Glaser. And Andy always wanted to play hockey with me. I never got a chance to do it with him because he was my stick boy. Wow. I gave him the love of the game. So he became good at hockey, and he became good enough as a German only to play 4th Division. And again, you got to put it in context. 4th Division hockey is probably A-grade beer league.
Sure.
Maybe, and intense hitting and all that sort of stuff. But it's still pretty, you've been to some beer league games with good hockey players. Yeah. It's still very, very high-level hockey. And he said, Gouche, you got to 1,997 points. Uh-huh. I want to get you 3 more for 2,000. And I'm going to be selfish. I want you to play on my line. And I said, Andy, come on, honestly. Yes. He said, yeah, I want you to do it. And the team's called Timmendorfer-Strand Storm. It wasn't my team. It was the 1B team. They have an A team and a B team. So it was their farm team. And I said, I haven't been skating. I haven't worn shoulder pads since I left. And he said, no, you got to do it. You do whatever it takes because I want you to show everything's possible. There is no word of impossible. I thought, wow, those are pretty cryptic from a guy like you. All right, I'll start training. So I went and trained and did all this great stuff and got in shape. Certainly didn't have the physique I had now. And I worked out and I got myself back into shape. And I remember going through the press, and there were a lot of kids that were looking up for me. There were people I was giving autographs to at 52. They weren't even born, and I was hoping that maybe they weren't my kid. Sorry, Mom, my wife, Tony. But things can happen, and I was in awe of the situation. Here I am at 52, going to play a professional game. I had to sign a contract, a day contract. I had to pee in a bottle, possibly, because you had to sign the doping from the DB. Right. Because even though it was fourth division, it was still a pro contract, insurance, all that sort of stuff. I didn't take any of that. My brother who had never seen me play professionally, he came along with his 2 sons and his wife, and they got to see me play. They sat right behind the bench where I would end up scoring my 3rd point. And it was kind of funny. I was on the bench with just going through warm up, and I was a little tired, so I went back to get a shot of water. The place is jammed, and I'm looking down at their goalie, and I'm looking down at their bed, like them skating, and I'm thinking, this is ridiculous. What am I doing here? Like, honestly, I'm 50. Some of these kids are 18, 19, 20 years old. I could be their grandfather, for God's sakes. And
maybe in Germany you were, as you just said. Who knows?
And he saw the moment, skated over and said, Gouche, you're going to crush it, kid. Here's a kid telling me I'm going to crush it. Went in the dressing room, and they call your names out, right? Yeah. So lights are out, it's full of spots. Everybody's called out, and I'm left for last, and it's Thunderstruck.
Thunderstruck. My high school basketball song. I love
unbelievable. That. And that's what they used to play when we were playing. So here I come. I'm nervous, and all I hear is, and now, ladies and gentlemen, your number 29, Kerry, and the whole place, Goulet. And I came on the ice, and I'm instantly in tears. Like, I'm bawling my eyes out. There's my jersey hanging in the rafters. Here are people, young and old, sick and healthy, all just there for me. It wasn't about the game. Right. It was about me. And I felt almost embarrassed at times because it was about me. They made it about me. And so first shift, I'm on I played left wing, or right wing with a left shot. There's no red line back there now. And Andy had passed me the puck. I was just turning, and boom, I got cranked. No. A young kid knocked me to my butt, and down I went. I was in La La Land, and Tony, my wife, is there. And she had never seen me play. And she was shocked. She was upstairs having schnapps. And I got up. Andy had seen this. Andy came and cross-checked this guy, took a 2-minute penalty for it. I went back to the bench, kind of shy, shook the cobwebs off, realized this is not a joke anymore. Yeah, like, I got to take this serious. Andy comes out of the bench, out of the box, and says, I'm running that son of a bitch. I said, no, Andy, let it go. He says, he's not this. Andy, I signed up for this. Yeah. So you got to let it go. So the next shift, Andy he's a defenseman in the corner, their corner. He races and he's going to crush this kid. Kid gets nervous, tries to dump it out over top everybody, happens to end up on my stick. Oh, wow. One dangle, backhand, top shelf. My brother was behind the net, took the puck, and the puck is actually in the back of the net for my first point. Oh, that's amazing. My wife is dancing up and down in the bar, drinking away, thinking, oh, he's only 1 point away. He's only 1 point away. And somebody said, you don't get 2 points for a goal.
I was going to say, I thought I missed a part of the story. Yeah,
so classic is, long story short, I assist on Andy Marley's first of 2 goals, and I assist on his game winner. To score my 3 points, and out came the crowd. It was like a celebration like no tomorrow. And my little friend, Yannick Cillian, his father was one of my biggest fans, came out, everybody there getting ready to take a picture, rips open his jersey and holds out this banner, Goulet 2,000 points.
Oh, wow. What a moment.
Yeah.
What a moment. And you know what? I'll say, I think you talk about, having that brief time where you were almost a little bit embarrassed because it was about you. But I also do think it's important that people who have spent so much time focusing on others as you have, and this is not blowing smoke, I mean, objectively speaking, you have,
Yep.
It is nice that there are moments where you get to realize all of the good that you've put out there and have it happen in a moment that if you wrote it in a movie would feel like it was fake.
Yeah.
And you've earned it.
Thank you. It's a little emotional. And the only thing that I regret from that day was I didn't have my dad with me, of course. It's tough because there's been so good and so much that I've done, but it wasn't about me. It was about Robert Velfor, who showed me that life could be taken away in an instant. And he never complained. And he gave me the opportunity to believe and be inspired. And so I owe a lot to him and for it. And as that moment happened, it was incredible to have my brother, my future wife, my jersey. It was just one of those surreal moments. And I think, that's my gift. They gave me, for all the good that I've done, those are things that have been given back to me to allow me to tell the story. And on the back of all of those, on my jersey, one of the things that was written in it, that everybody that had suffered, Barry Monroe, Keith Primo, a couple of people, Ryan Durham, a bunch of guys that had lost their lives, were all on the back of the jersey. Their names were written.
Oh, wow.
Because the event was for they allowed me to raise money for Stop Concussions on that game. And it was amazing. And I'll never, ever forget that. And I think it now leads into, I know I've been long in the tooth, so I think it's really important to maybe fast forward it just a bit. So at 52, I got 2,000 points.
Yes.
At 59, which is probably the biggest challenge of my life, I get a phone call from Eric Dietrich, who had suffered a brain aneurysm and was not coaching the team anymore because he just couldn't function.
Right.
The team ran into trouble. They were going to lose the ice rink. Because Timmendorf, this ice rink was in a beach resort, and they could use that land. It was in a park area, most picturesque place you could ever imagine. The city was starting to contemplate tearing the rink down because it was an older rink, and it wasn't having as much success as when I was there, filling the rink. But they still had a lot of junior hockey. They were planning on maybe tearing it down and building condos. Or a parking lot.
Oh, no.
Appropriate song. And you called me and said, listen, there's only one man that can do it. It's you. So do what? You're going to get in shape and you're going to play in a 5th division game in Toronto, in Timmendorf, the last game of the season. We needed to advance and we need you here. I said, that is the most ludicrous, craziest thing you've ever mentioned.
Yeah.
When do I come? So I went and I practiced at a little 3-on-3 rink, no equipment, skating, losing. I was about 20 pounds over
where you'd want to be. Yeah.
I did everything. I only had 3 weeks to do it. And I skated. And I agreed to something that I thought was really silly. So I get on the flight. I get over there. It's a Thursday afternoon. They do a press conference. A TV camera. Again, I can't make this stuff up. It's all documented. There's a camera following me around, going to the beach, talking about my life in the past, all that sort of stuff. The only reason why I can't show the tape to anybody, I will show it to people, is they did a part and I was in a shower with my big bucket, having a shower with a couple of young guys at my older stage. And I don't think it would be appropriate. And so at the press conference, Eric Dietrich said to me, hey, Gouche, we got practice. What? I didn't sign up for practice. Yeah. Tomorrow you have practice. I said, no, I'm not. It's not in my contract. It's Friday night. I'm going to go and you're practicing, Kerry. You have to practice one time with the kids. They don't know you.
Yeah. You got to get chemistry
Only one
going.
player, he was older too. I think he was 50. It was Michel Mai, had come out of retirement to play, and he was going to play on my line. And we were playing a team from Hamburg, and it was a team they were all Russians, guys that like beer league. This was beer league hockey.
Sure.
At its best.
Because this is Division 5. This is one below where you would come
4.
back to last time. Yeah.
So I agreed to all this. I said, okay, I'll come to practice. I come to practice. I'm walking up with my bag, and there's like 500 people in the lineup to get into the rink for practice. what?
Wow.
So I get in there and I'm nervous. I say to Yerky, this is crazy, but I'm not ready for this. Yeah, Gouche, this is nothing. So they got camera crews. There's a picture of me with my Ronald McDonald's shirt on with all these TV cameras and stuff. What is it like? And then they'd interview a kid beside me and the kid would say, he was my idol. I can't believe I'm in the same dressing room as Kerry Goulet. And I'm thinking, hang on a sec here. I'm just an average Joe hockey player. Come on, honestly.
Right.
All right. But to them, I was their Wayne Gretzky.
Right.
And how I got
Mr.
that
Ice
Mr.
Hockey,
Ice Hockey was in a press conference by Dieter Hartmann. He had asked many years earlier, Kerry, you do so much for people that can't help themselves. You are the Wayne Gretzky of Timmendorf. And people took it as if I was the Wayne Gretzky of hockey. But I wasn't. I was their Wayne Gretzky of being out there connecting those dots and bringing people together.
It wasn't about necessarily the points you were getting.
No,
it was connecting
never
those
was.
points. Okay.
And that's where Dieter Hartmann said, no, you're Mr. Hockey, which ends up being Mr. Ice Hockey, which is Gordie Howe. Right. So he blended the two together. And
was that a comment on you playing at the age of 58?
It was tough. No, this was way before.
Oh, okay.
This was in my heydays.
Yeah.
And it was embarrassing because guys, you think you're Gretzky? I said, no, it wasn't me that said, that type thing. It took years for people to kind of think that
I'm just learning this now.
Yeah,
I didn't, not that there was any judgment there, but I had always assumed that it was just kind of it was, the points that you put up and this and that.
It was about what I did off the ice.
And I bet you, if given the opportunity to have that name as a result of the points or what you've done off the ice, you would rather have it because of what you've done off the ice.
Oh, absolutely. No question. And so he was there at this press conference or inside the dressing room and, hey, Gretz, how you doing? I said, Dieter, you never do that again. And so now we're ready to go out in the game and these kids are, looking up to me and it's going to be this incredible thing. And in warm-up, I had seen the goalie was not very good. It was like the goalie from Slapshot. Sure. It's my buddy, Danny Lemieux. And I turned to one of the players. It was Michel Mai. He didn't put me on the first line. He kept me on the second line. Okay. And at practice, with all these people there, I realized I can't go. I got to show them a little bit because they're coming the next day. So I actually worked in practice. Like I didn't fake it, right? And so here I am dancing.
Are you sure it's not because you wanted to work your way up to the first line?
No. Thank God we had 4 lines.
Yeah.
And so that night, I had a beer with the boys, went back to my hotel. My wife was not there. She's in Toronto. I go to bed, 2:00 in the morning, stiff. I couldn't move. Every lactic acid had kicked in. I didn't do the usual stretching. No. And at that age, everything was kicking in. I'm 59 years old. I'm done. I call my wife. Tony, how did you talk to me? What am I doing? This is ridiculous. Said, Gouche, go in the shower, get the nozzle, just shower yourself down. Yeah. So 2 hours, I was in the shower with hot water, just getting everything done. Woke up in the morning. I was stiff, but the hot water, I called my buddy Willie Roker. Willie says, get over here. So I get over there. He looks at it. He does a little twist and turn. He says, Gouche, I can't massage you. You got way too much lactic acid. So here's what we're going to do. I've got this cream. You just rub it on your body, take a shower. Here's a couple of pills. Pop these pills. And don't forget, at 59, even though it's a 5th division, I had to sign a player's contract, which then the IIHF, and there's a doping situation. So I go to Willie and said, okay, what is this? Like, what am I doing? Don't worry, it'll fall into it. So you do it at lunch, you do it just before you go to the rink, and you do it just before the game. Yeah. So I took a shower before the game, I followed the whole thing. And the typical calling out the players' names, and I come out last. The place is jammed. I come out last. I trip on, the gate, that little lip. Yeah, out I come. I slide. I look like Superman. Everybody thought,
now he thinks he's Wayne Gretzky and Superman.
It looked like part of the script. And so I got up. It was an embarrassing moment. And I turned to the player. I think it was Michel Mai, and I said, I think we're going to light this team up on fire. Like, this goalie he's going to be a Christmas tree by the end of this. Yeah. And Michel Mai said, you're right, we're going to. So we get started, and the end result was 3 goals, 6 assists for 9 points at 59 years old. Somebody say, okay,
you couldn't get the 10th to give Sittler a run for his money? Come on.
Actually, the funny part of the story is this. They could have run the garbage out of me. Again, it's documented. So it's not something.
Right.
It's not something that I could, I'm not making it. Like, people can read this. So
yes.
If anybody thinks I'm arrogant, it happened. This happened. So 2 goals, 6 assists, 8 points. Jörg Dietrich's on the bench. He's part-time coach. He's got another coach because he has a tough time because he had a brain aneurysm.
Right.
He says to me, "It's time. There's a minute and a half left. It's time." What do you mean? You're going for your hat trick. You're going out with the young kids. So I go out. Goalie's at the net. Face off in their zone. I skate over the goalie. He can't speak English. Can't speak German. He's Russian. I say to him, "Yeah, 3." He looks at me. "Yeah, 3." Jokingly, win the draw, blah, blah, blah. I score a 3rd goal. He's yelling, "Yeah!"
More excited than you are.
I'm skating to the bench to do the hand tap. Their bench is standing up. I'm tapping every one of their
including
players.
the opposing team. No.
Honestly, they could have run the garbage out of me.
Sure.
Like they should have. But it was about, again, I'm going back, it was about me honoring their game, like giving them an opportunity. I'm 18 and this son of a gun at 59 is on the ice playing. I want to be him type idea. So it gave them the opportunity, and we were trying to save the rink, don't forget. So it was just one of those main moments that brought so many people together to understand nothing's impossible.
Right.
Would I do it again? No. But it was something at the moment that I can look back at, and it then leads into all of this great work. It helped me raise money, helped me etch in stone my name in Timmendorf for helping do more than just the things that I did. And then it gave me an opportunity to do the Ice Hockey Classic. It gave me all this stuff led up through the Stop Concussions, the Shoot for a Cure, now the Connected Mental Health after my late sister, and of course, Paul Rosen, who is, as you probably know, has suffered from, trying to take his life 3 years ago, going into some mental issues, struggling right now. It allowed me to get back to my roots and be who I was. And when I got the opportunity to go and do the Ice Hockey Classic in 2011 in Christchurch, New Zealand. Just after the earthquake, we were one of only 3 facilities that didn't get hurt.
Oh, really?
Kyle Quincy was our main guy with John Graham and net, Derek Armstrong. It was too long a story to tell, but it was unbelievable. And it was a launching pad for us to lead up to 2016, where I had the opportunity to, along your father, helped to secure it. TEG, a buddy of mine named Scott Davidson, the New South Wales government got involved as we were doing these Ice Hockey Classics. They wanted to do something that nobody had ever done before. They had Jordan. They had Tiger Woods in the city of Sydney promoting their great city. We had, the year before, had a game in center court of Rod Laver Arena. We had a game where I built a rink with a great team of people, and we played ice hockey at the Rod Laver Arena. And the game in June 24th, we played a game again. And then the next day we played June the 25th in Sydney, the Kudos Arena, to a sold-out crowd. The first game was Team Goulet versus Team Gretzky.
I've heard of him. He's the Canadian Kerry Goulet, right?
That's it. Should have asked him that. And that's what this jersey is. This is Wayne Gretzky's jersey that he wore in those games.
If you're not watching on YouTube, Kerry is wearing the Ice Hockey Classic jersey in studio,
and it's signed by Mr. Gretzky. And so I've been blessed to do all these things. And on New Year's Eve, as we were set back again with the pandemic, I was reflecting.
Right.
And my wife had gone to bed early, so we didn't actually see the ball drop. I thought, there's a jersey I've been missing. I just want to go and look. And I've got some of the jerseys like what you have here up on the wall.
Sure.
And I thought, I want to go and find it. So I went, and in my basement, I have 8 hockey bags of jerseys, and I started counting them and looking, and I can't find it. And at 542 jerseys of all different types of jerseys, ones that I played in, ones that were in charity events, ones that I played in Belarus, won a bronze medal for Senior Team Canada, all these different jerseys that I wore in charity events like this, all around the world. I thought, I'm going to send this picture to my buddy and say, hey, would you want this jersey, for all that you've done? And it was my 29 jersey that I scored my 3 points. I was giving it to Andy Marley.
Oh, in the game that you came back to get 2000.
52, yeah.
Wow.
And he said, no, I don't want it. I'll give you money for it. I said, what do you mean give you money for it? Why don't you auction these things off, Gouche? You'll raise a few bucks. I said, well, who wants a Kerry? My mom's gone. She's not going to. He said, you still have fans over here. Maybe not in Europe, in North America, but they're cool, funky European jerseys.
For sure.
Yeah. So I came up with a crazy idea that night with him. I'm going to do an auction. I'm going to say, take the jersey off my back. I'm going to pose with a bunch of these jerseys, a fat gut, and you have the opportunity to take this jersey off my back. $25, $30, $50. And then all of a sudden, I started looking. Gretzky gave me a jersey, a personal jersey, it's not game worn.
Right.
Brent Burns I got a bunch of jerseys along the way. And then I said, okay, I'll make this about giving back to Stop Concussions and, of course, Connected Mental Health, because there are a bunch of guys, men, women, and children that are suffering through mental health issues, not being able to play our great game or play basketball, play baseball, whatever that sport is. I'm going to raise some money and continue on my work, even though it's been quiet for a couple of years. I know through this, I'm going to raise the roof, get a bunch of people talking about it. It's not how much money I raise. It's about just
awareness
talking about it. Hey, that's cool. And that's where we came up with this idea, take the jersey off my back. And it's happening January 29th. And you guys have been so kind to, collect a couple jerseys for me too.
So that actually will have already happened at the time of this recording, but the auction is going on.
It goes on till May the 14th.
Right.
So we're going to, on the 29th, the auction opens up. And then you have chances. We got a buy now button. So we got Gretzky, McDavid, Draisaitl.
There you go.
Marner,
I think there's a
Marner, Matthews. You guys, everybody's helped me raise yourself, Frozen Pond. All these guys have come together. So we're going to have just an incredible event. And we're just hoping that people have already checked out. And if you haven't, come on and check the site and do a buy now. And all the money helps support
Remind them where to go to find this.
StopConcussions.com/shop. Once you go to the shop, it'll direct you to the silent auction. And we're just so blessed to have people like yourself and your father. The Aaronworth family's meant so much to myself and Barry Monroe over the years.
And us.
Some of the funds will go and help Barry too. Hopefully we raise enough to give back to a lot of people. And it's also money that'll allow us to continue on doing what we do. We pay for medical help for some of the players that don't have money. Obviously, some of these guys have had concussions. They battled it and toiled in the East Coast League and don't have enough money to maybe pay for the doctor. That's what Stop Concussions and Mental Health, Connected Mental Health do. And it's all because I lost my sister to this horrific disease. And we're going to make difference. We're going to make a damn difference. We are not going to wait for our governments, our medical staff to solve it. We're going to work hand in hand with them to make sure as we come out of this pandemic, the new epidemic is going to be mental health. And there are far many too young men and women, boys and girls, ending their lives because they see no hope. There's lots of hope, and we're going to make sure this is just the start of something big.
I think it's such a good cause to champion. I mean, you talk about concussions and back when you first had yours, how no one even knew to think about that as the underlying cause of what you were going through. And I think mental health is exactly the same thing right now. Something I've struggled with my entire life as well. And I love to see these things brought to the forefront, people like you really championing the cause. And as you mentioned, not just raising the money, but raising awareness. We need to talk about these things. And this is how I want to kind of draw a nice bow around our conversations that we've had, is to say, you started off last week's podcast, part one of this interview, by saying, I was told I wasn't tough enough and I didn't know what tough was back then. And now here you are, decades later, championing a cause and being tougher than anyone else who's doing so, or many other people who are doing so, in order to shed light on the fact that toughness is not the answer in the way that you thought toughness was back then. You're saying, let's pay attention to the things that we otherwise wouldn't have considered to be tough back then. You know what's tough? Is dealing with these issues of concussion, these invisible issues of mental health, and trying to come out on the other side of it. That's toughness. And I think as long as you have people like you saying that and championing that cause, we're going to see a lot of progress over the coming years.
I can't thank you enough. It's incredible, and you bring out so many emotions and flood of emotions. And I just want to end my thought on this. There was a time when I had bought the rinks. You know, we do the Ice Hockey Classic. Right. Of course, Gretzky was absolutely amazing, but we actually built the rinks. And at the end of it all, we were building a rink in Wellington, New Zealand. And unfortunately, the weather and issues did not allow the game, and the boards fell. And I was standing there watching these boards fall, and I knew I was going to take a punch, and everybody would blame me, but the weather and a bunch of other things that happened. So I had to put my hand up and say, I failed. And I could have gone home that night. My wife was in the fetal position, and she gave up. She said, that's it, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. And I remember holding her and saying, listen, you are not quitting. I'm not quitting. I would promise you one thing. We did this. We started this journey to help other people. We're not helping ourselves. We're helping other people. And we're not going to quit. I will one day come back to New Zealand and relive this. I will have an outdoor game in New Zealand for all of those people I let down and all the money I didn't raise for those people, regardless of the cost. I could have gone in the fetal position, but I chose not to give up. I chose, there's a meaning that was given to me, and I'm going to succeed. And I'll tell you what, right now, yes, there's a pandemic, and it's delayed our functions and our events and has changed many lives. And I feel like Tom Brady in the backfield of a Super Bowl where I've had to pivot from side to side, sure, not knowing where all these invisible players are coming from. But I promise you and everybody that's believed in Kerry Goulet, Stop Concussions, Shoot for a Cure, Connected Mental Health, and all the great people of Paul Rosen and my wife, and also many great Barry Monroe, we are coming back. We have organized an outdoor game in Queenstown, New Zealand. Wow. And when this pandemic gets out of our lives, the plans are there. It's just we need a few months to organize it. So it may not be 2022, but we will be back in Australia and New Zealand. And our game, our outdoor game, will happen in Queenstown, in part of a chain of mountains that look very similar to the Rockies here. And if you saw this year's in Lake Tahoe, I have the exact same picturesque mountains. And you know what they're called?
What's that?
They're called the Remarkables.
The Remarkables.
And that's what this is going to be. The Remarkables, that I'm going to make sure that we deliver the promise that we gave those people and all those people that are suffering, and don't give up.
Well, you've always delivered, and somewhere, John Ferguson Sr. is hearing you right now and kicking himself, because boy, was he wrong when he said that you weren't tough enough. Kerry Goulet, the man they call Gouche, the man they call 29 Mr. Ice Hockey. How many nicknames do you need? Kerry Goulet, thank you so much for joining us. If you're out there listening, make sure StopConcussions.com to get in on the action. Listen to Gouche Live, the podcast available on all podcast platforms, spreading awareness of light and lifestyle, talking hockey. If you enjoyed him speaking here, you'll enjoy him speaking there. Anything else to lead out on, Kerry?
I just want to thank you. Honestly, you've allowed me a platform to let people know that you're never too small, mm-hmm, and you're never too old to live a dream. And so it's important, especially under these extreme circumstances, how many people are not seeing hope. There's hope. Every moment you open your eyes and you breathe, there's hope. Reach out. Reach out. Do not be afraid. There are people here that are going to help you. And Mikey, I can't thank you and your father for giving me this platform and helping us along the way. And I can't wait to see you playing in my Team Goulet in Queenstown.
Hey, I'm there. Are you kidding me? Let's use that. My favorite Shakespeare quote of all time from King Lear: "The worst is not so long as we can say this is the worst." Always know that there is hope around the corner as long as you can recognize the situation that you're in. Kerry, thank you so much for joining us. For Kerry Goulet, I am Mikey Aaronworth, host of the Sign Off Podcast, and this is us signing off. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we made it to the end of yet another episode. Thanks again so much for joining us. You can find videos of all of our episodes on YouTube by searching the Sign Off Podcast. You can also follow us on Twitter at Frameworth Sport or Instagram at Frameworth Sports. And hey, if you're not sick of me yet, you can find me on Twitter over at Retrograde Mikey, or you can always find me embarrassing myself over on Instagram at Aaronworth. The Sign Off is a proud product of Fadoo Productions and Sad Styles Productions. Executive producers Mikey Aaronworth and Andrew Bascom. Until next week, this is Mikey Aaronworth signing off.
Furnished by Sad Styles Productions.
Get into it.